In this video, I want to talk about a bunch of storyline information for Black Ops 6 Zombies that I haven't covered in videos yet. This is stuff pertaining to the intro cutscene of Terminus, as well as more information that we've gotten from the gameplay reveal of the map. Now, we have also received some new Black Ops 6 Zombies story teasers as well, but I'm talking about a lot in this video, so I'll go over them later on into this video. I'm going to be covering a lot of topics. There is a lot to discuss, so let's dive into it. Firstly, in the Terminus intro, of course, all of the characters know who Edward Richtofen is called, and this is definitely going to be a huge storyline thing. Now, in my breakdown of the intro cutscene, I said that maybe during their time in the prison on the island, they have figured out who the ex-director of Requiem is and figured out his name. Maybe they overheard the guards referencing his name or something like that. Now, of course, Dr. Peck was working as a mole in Omega for Richtofen throughout Cold War Zombies. Now, I assume he didn't know who their name actually was, and he didn't know he was working for the director of the Requiem until right at the end of the storyline. And in the intro cutscene, he says he wants to go after the person who stole all of his life's work, because Richtofen's been using all of Peck's research and stuff like that on his Project Janus. But many people pointed out in my comment section that what if they actually knew the name Edward Richtofen long before the events of Black Ops 6 Zombies, long before they were even imprisoned on the island? Maybe they knew of Richtofen before they even started working at Requiem. Of course, Richtofen planted himself as the director of Requiem and handpicked all of the Requiem heads himself. But his identity was concealed the entire time. It was only Carver who ever got close to uncovering the identity of the director. Maybe the characters have all actually encountered Richtofen before and knew of Richtofen's name before, but they didn't know they were actually working for him because his identity was sealed. So there's two possible options here. Maybe they have all had past encounters with Richtofen they didn't know was working for him, or the alternative is they have only just figured it out whilst being on the island at Terminus. But the implications are huge if they have actually encountered Richtofen before. Now, of course, I've speculated in prior videos, we know that prior to the events of Cold War Zombies, Samantha had given intel to Weaver on a CIA target for assassination. Weaver went to kill this target. After thinking he had killed them, he burnt down his house to cover his tracks, but he later found out the wife and son of the target were inside as the house burned to the ground. And we've speculated that this target was likely Richtofen because he has a scar on his throat and eye, so this could be from the failed assassination attempt, and we know that Richtofen has a wife and son in the portrait in the Forsaken ending cutscene, so most likely this was him. If so, Weaver would have met Richtofen before and knew of Richtofen before Cold War Zombies. He just didn't know he was working for him throughout, and maybe at some point during their time on Terminus, he figured out that yes, he was working for Richtofen unbeknownst the entire time. Maybe even Richtofen introduced himself as the director of Requiem to all of them whilst imprisoned at Terminus, or they found out some other way. Either way, this makes complete sense because Richtofen handpicked the Requiem heads, so he may have picked intentionally to sabotage him due to this event that unfolded. And we know that Richtofen said he wanted Weaver to suffer immensely on Terminus by the Interrogator, Ernst Duffer, and that could be again because he wants revenge for this event. But why was Richtofen a target for CIA assassination? This means that he was up to dubious things, he was up to no good. Maybe even he was working on Project Janus before Requiem was even formed, way before the events of Black Ops Cold War Zombies. This could have been a long game, and it also ties into Samantha Maxis. Of course, Samantha Maxis and Eddie both walked into the new universe together at the end of Tag the Toten. We don't know what happened when they entered this new universe in the 1960s, but somehow they separated. We don't know if they separated when they entered the new universe, or they might have actually lived their early lives together. It's unclear right now, but this means that when Samantha gave the intel to Weaver, she might have actually known who Richtofen was, and maybe when she entered the Dark Ether on Firebase C and experienced amnesia, that is only when she forgot who Richtofen was, because of course Richtofen interrogated her in Block 8 throughout Cold War Zombies, and Richtofen has memories of the past Ether story. He knew of Samantha's birth date, for example, but Samantha's memory was hazy. But she may have actually known who Richtofen was before, and now that she's in the Dark Ether, her memories may be flooding back to her, and she might start to remember everything. And this makes sense because Richtofen concealed his identity using a voice changer when interrogating her, and that could be because he didn't want her to start to remember who he is. And maybe even she remembered who he is leading up to the events of Forsaken. It's unclear, but I personally think there's a good chance that maybe not even just Weaver and Samantha have had past history with Richtofen, but all of the other characters may have actually had history with him, and now they all remember him. So this is definitely a really big storyline thing that we need to be paying attention to. Of of course, Weaver has literally written the name Richtofen on his walls in his prison cell. He wants revenge. But has he worked out that that assassination attempt was Richtofen himself or not? It's unclear. In the Call of Duty blog, it even references about Weaver wanting to burn Richtofen's house to the ground, which surely is a reference to this. So I think this is a really big thing. So definitely how they know the name Edward Richtofen is a very important thing for the storyline, whether they've recently found it out or found it out prior. But if we are indeed correct that Weaver might have actually caused the death of Richtofen's wife and son, and maybe this is his motivation for Project Janus in actually rescuing his wife and son, potentially through some sort of dark ether cloning, then I wonder if this could give Richtofen leverage to manipulate Weaver and the other characters to do his bidding later on in the story, because right now we know they all want to go after him and seek revenge. But if it's revealed that Weaver did this, then it gives Richtofen ammunition to say, can you really blame me for these bad things I've done? But again, if Richtofen was a CIA target for assassination before the events of Cold War Zombies, then he was clearly doing bad even before this. But again, it gives him leverage to manipulate the characters to maybe do something for him, to further his own goals. And even Weaver may go along with it. Could this even be why they eventually end up dead in Urzikstan? Could this be something Richtofen wanted or proposed to them? Who knows? The other thing I want to mention is regarding Ernst Duffer, who is apparently the interrogator who interrogated Requiem and the other members who were imprisoned here on Terminus. Of course, we learned backstory that he also previously served in a prison/insane asylum in Berlin, Germany. I don't know if that's hinting at that being a future Zombies map. Now, in my initial breakdown, I said that Ernst Duffer is probably the security guard we saw get killed by Maya in the intro cutscene and who was watching the security cameras. But many people rightly pointed out in my comment section, this is probably not Ernst Duffer, might just be the surveillance person. Ernst Duffer is apparently the interrogator, so this wouldn't be him. So maybe it's Ernst Duffer, maybe it's not. I guess it's not clear cut right now, especially because he's been killed off so early. We may be seeing Ernst Duffer in a more fleshed out capacity later on, but we will have to wait and see if they are one and the same. Moving on, the other big thing I want to bring up is regarding the symbols that Weaver has carved into his prison cell on the wall, because there's a couple symbols which are actually of the old ones. Now, if you guys are unaware what the old ones are, the old ones are basically just dark ether entities who have a lot of power. So for example, the dark ether elder gods we saw in Vanguard Zombies are all old ones, but it even extends to the old etherverse. The giant apothecans that we saw were also considered old ones too. So it's not like an exclusive group, they're basically just dark ether entities with incredible power. But there's two symbols, and one is apparently about protection. But why is Weaver carving in these elder god old one symbols on his wall? This means that he's been getting contacted by the old ones, probably in some capacity, maybe through visions, through dreams, like we've seen in many times in the past Call of Duty Zombies story. Now, the old ones are actually based on the old ones from the Cthulhu mythos by H.P. Lovecraft, which was of course a big inspiration for a lot of the Lovecraftian apothecary stuff in Black Ops 3 Zombies, so I like that that's been reintroduced into the storyline. And now that we have tentacle traps as well as the giant tentacle in the water, these might also be old ones. But the old ones are returning. It was actually prophesied by Spragmos, who was another old one, who was the creator of the Crystal Axe on Forsaken. On the parchment paper, it said that when the Forsaken's defeated, the old ones would return. Now, if you're unaware, the reason why Zykov was able to gain so much power during the 40-year gap, which was 400 Dark Ether years when he was trapped in the Dark Ether, was because he apparently managed to actually consume and eat a load of different elder gods and old ones. So most likely, the old ones from Vanguard Zombies might have actually been eaten by Zykov. So when the Forsaken was defeated by Samantha Maxis and trapped in the containment chamber for Richtofen, we see some red flares come out of it. So that could have actually been the old ones being freed. And even on the Crystal Axe parchment paper, it says when the Forsaken's ashes rain, and this could be the ashes of the old ones, these red flames. So the old ones might be returning into the storyline. So why are the old ones contacting Weaver? Are they going to be trying to manipulate Weaver into doing bad for them, or into freeing them, or doing something like that? Or is Weaver trying to protect himself against the old ones? Especially because one of the symbols is about protection. It's a bit unclear right now, and we will have to figure that out later. Of course, we also see another symbol of the construct, which gives the user ultimate power. If they manage to successfully complete trials, they're able to have their desired wishes fulfilled. It's very weird why the construct is there. Of course, Cortifex in Vanguard Zombies tried to become the Archon, but he failed. So are the old ones trying to become the Archon? Is this a goal of Richtofen for ultimate power, or something else? It's also worth noting that Mr. Peaks the Bunny Rabbit, I've speculated in prior videos that this could be the unwanted offspring of Saraxis and Cortifex, because Cortifex apparently did something horrible to to his child, and we know he's got the power to transform beings into inanimate objects like he did with the Decimator shield. So maybe he turned his son into Mr. Peaks. If so, Mr. Peaks could also be an old one, so I think that's interesting how that pertains to these symbols. Mr. Peaks could even be trying to help us. Maybe we have to side with either Richtofen or the old ones in the story. Also, even Samantha Maxis, considering she's been in the Dark Aether for a while now and has Dark Aether powers, she could even end up becoming an old one or an elder god. Maybe she's even in control of the zombies in Black Ops 6 Zombies. And the reason why I say this is because, of course, they have yellow eyes, but they had yellow eyes even in Black Ops Cold War Zombies, so that's not enough of an indicator. But we know that she was actually responsible for the zombie outbreak on Firebase C when she went into the Dark Aether there. And with her being in control of the zombies before in the Aetherverse, it would probably allow her to gain power more quickly than just a new person in the Dark Aether who had never encountered it before. So I wonder if she's going to be in control now, because in the early gameplay of Terminus, they actually removed all of the dialogue for the characters as well as for any of the power-ups. Now, of course, if we would have heard the power-ups and we would hear Samantha announcing them, but we don't hear any of that. So maybe they've hidden who the announcer is because they don't want to give away that Samantha might actually be in control of the zombies now. And another thing is that we actually have the trial machines returning in the map, but this time they actually phase in and out of the Dark Aether, so they're not going to be permanently on the map. You can do trials just like in Cold War Zombies for rewards, but written on the trials is actually S.A.M trials, Sam trials. Most likely this is Samantha Maxis giving trials to us in a similar way to how Zykov was giving us trials in Cold War Zombies, but he ended up turning out to be the big bad. Now, I guess this is a bit of a generic story because it's been done so many times in Call of Duty, but maybe Samantha's going to be contacting us through the trials machine, trying to tempt us, and maybe she's fully succumbed to the Dark Aether. We might actually be convinced, she might manipulate us, and then she turns out to backstab us at the end of the story. We know that, of course, the characters failed to save Samantha Maxis. We learn about this in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. They tried to save her, but they failed, and this could be why they end up dead by these canisters in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. Or the Sam trials could actually be her AI clones, because we know the Dark Aether is capable of cloning. We also had the Cerberus wonder weapon on Mauer de Toten created by Dr. Gray that was based on the Requiem Heads AI, so I wonder if Richtofen might have done something similar, because this is a Project Janus trial machine, but why would Richtofen need a Samantha trial machine? It's so peculiar what is going on here, but what's even more peculiar is that Treyarch have actually updated their blog to remove the mention of the Sam trials. If you look at it now, you can see that it says Sam trials, so most likely they didn't want to give this away so early, and Treyarch have redacted it, removed it, but this is a big storyline thing that we weren't supposed to find out just yet. So this could be that, yes, Samantha might be in control of the zombies once again, and that is why Treyarch didn't want to give this away. And the thing is, we know that the Forsaken is the announcer in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies.
Fetch me their souls. Double points. Insta-kill.
The containment chamber was supposed to nullify the Forsaken's powers. Has it been successful though? But this is really weird. How is he the announcer? This is again a big storyline thing that doesn't really make much sense. Again, the Forsaken was contained in the containment chamber. Richtofen had it taken somewhere, which I think maybe he's had it taken to Liberty Falls. Somehow maybe the Forsaken escapes, or maybe he's still somehow controlling the zombies afterwards from the containment chamber. But this is something that may come up again. The Forsaken story doesn't seem to be over just yet. But if Samantha does in fact control the zombies in Black Ops 6, then she somehow loses power, and maybe the Forsaken regains power at a later point in the story. Again, I don't really know how. We have so many different angles to take here. We have Richtofen, Samantha, the old ones, the Forsaken, all of which seem to be battling for power, and I wonder how that's going to all play out and who we're going to side with, etc. And we know that Samantha Maxis's documents were classified for Project Janus 6776 days ago, which would be around 2003 and 2004. We don't know what this is referring to. Did Samantha Maxis actually manage to escape from the Dark Aether around that time, or did Richtofen and Project Janus just lose contact of her and her whereabouts in the Dark Aether in 2003 or 2004? It's unclear. If so, maybe that's when she loses power and she's no longer in control of the zombies in the Dark Aether. That could be something huge. So maybe Weaver has been writing these notes from the old ones, or these symbols, because he's becoming cursed by them, and maybe as the corruption grows, it allows the old one's power to grow, similar similar to, for example, the Shadow Man escaping on Revelations or on Shadows of Evil, or Ava and the Entity. It could be a similar case of manipulation. And in fact, if we even zoom in on the top of the intel machine, there is a hologram of what looks to be the Forsaken's containment chamber. So what on earth is going on here? Is the Forsaken and Samantha Maxis communicating through this? Have they somehow bonded together? Are they both simultaneously in control of the zombies? Or maybe even Samantha Maxis has her own containment chamber. And also it's weird because if you are unaware, the containment chamber that the Forsaken is trapped in is actually based on Sophia's robots from Gorod Krovi, and it's unclear why the designs are so similar. Is it just paying homage? Did Richtofen have this design specifically created due to some sort of link with Sophia? I have no idea, but this is something to really think about. Now, whilst the Forsaken's containment chamber was made by Dr. Peck, since he was working as a mole in Omega for Requiem, it was Richtofen's instruction to actually make this device, and most likely he aided in its creation and conception, given his past knowledge of Sophia and the old Ether story. When Peck says he stole all of his life's work, this is one of the examples he could be referring to, and all of this technology that Richtofen is currently working on with cloning may all be based on Peck's work, and it's clear Richtofen probably wants to clone his wife or son. And in fact, the Sophia that goes inside of the Cerberus wonder weapon and orbits around it to shoot the bullets actually looks like the containment chamber for the Forsaken, known as a copycat companion module, which this floating sphere would eject from the port and center around the weapon, which would shoot simultaneously as you are shooting the Cerberus, making it fire 2 shots at once. Made by the Containment and Security Division on January 11th, 1985 by Requiem. So what if this little Sophia is what contains the AI sentience for each of the Requiem heads for each of the Cerberus wonder weapons, and maybe this chamber for the intel system is containing the essence or the sentience of Samantha Maxis. But whether this is actually her or a clone of her is unclear. And if it is a clone, why would Richtofen have this created to be specifically of Samantha? Is it just a way for him to feel close to her? They do have so much history. Or just because she is so powerful? And this is one example of Requiem's DNA being taken, because most likely it was taken with or without their consent to make the Cerberus. And their DNA was also used for the birth of Ava Jansen, and most likely Samantha's DNA could have also been extracted to then be used for this intel machine. So maybe the containment Sophia that held Requiem's artificial intelligence within the Cerberus could be similar technology for the giant Sophia that held the Forsaken, and this could just be similar technology based on Sophia's Sophia, no pun intended, from Gorod Krovi. It could literally just be the same technology that held her sentience within that robot. And to further add to this, the room where the Requiem heads sacrificed themselves in this bunker in Urzikstan literally has a Cerberus on the shelf and other items like a monkey bomb, perks, etc. And if it contains literally their artificial intelligence, does it then allow them to return to their bodies? Or is this coincidence? Does the Cerberus being there mean nothing? Now there's another big thing, because in the background of Weaver's cell is some sort of symbol, and I don't really know what this is behind him. Now apparently one achievement is to collect the final talisman in the game, so it seems like there's going to be talisman on Terminus or Liberty Falls, but I assume this is probably for Liberty Falls, so maybe this symbol is one of these talisman. It kind of does resemble the Elder Sigils on Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, and I find that interesting because the Elder Sigils imply that those Dark Ether Rifts in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies are a result of these old ones, these Elder Gods, so there might be some sort of connection there. But it was pointed out to me on Twitter that it kind of actually resembles a skull and crossbones, and it had me thinking, what if this symbol is actually Weaver getting foreshadowed that they all have to die? Because, for example, the skull in the center could symbolize the Aetherium canisters, and then each of the edges of the bones could symbolize the 4 different characters sat around these Aetherium canisters all dead. So maybe it's being foreshadowed by the old ones that they have to kill themselves. Again, it's unclear if they consent to this, it's unclear if they actually plan to do this, or if they're told to do it by someone else, such as the old ones, or they're told to do it by Richtofen, or they're manipulated to do it by Samantha Maxis. There's so many different angles that this could be, but this could be what the symbol is about. Maybe they actually kill themselves to allow the old ones to be freed, or something like that. They could be manipulated into it, or they die to return at a later date. It's all very unclear right now. We also have some more storyline information regarding Dr. Peck and Maya, because we know they're working together to free Requiem, of course. But how did they actually meet? At the end of Forsaken, we have a 5-year time jump, and Peck is looking for a boat from a fisherman to head to a location in the Pacific, the location of Terminus, but the boatman says that there is nothing out there, there's nothing for them. Most likely at this point, he tries to look for more information as to how he can get there, and at some point he accidentally stumbles into Maya, who is a Philippine smuggler, and it just so happens that her brother has also been taken captive on Terminus. So it doesn't seem like Peck planned to meet Maya, they just happened to meet by coincidence. This was actually revealed in a recent story trailer about Maya. Treyarch discussed this. So they're unusual allies. It's not that they're necessarily similar people or have similar ideals, it's just that they are working together for a common goal. Peck wants revenge against Richtofen, and he needs Requiem to be broken out to do that, but in order for them to be broken out, he needs help from someone, and Maya is someone who shares a common goal to find her brother, who's also taken there. Now, regarding Maya specifically, we don't know the name of her brother, but we know the goal of the Terminus Easter egg is going to be trying to break her brother out and rescue him. Now, we've recently had a Terminus trailer which shows some new gameplay snippets, and it references the backstory for a food-motivated zombie, and it says that he still responds to being called Nathan. Now, I am wondering if Nathan could actually be her brother. We know, of course, that Richtofen has been doing experiments on this island, or at least had people doing experiments for him, creating zombies that we see in these Aetherium chambers. So he's had lots of inmates turned into zombies, and it says subject NAQ13, active, stable, still answers to Nathan, food motivated, do not engage in conversation, subject is highly skilled in manipulation. So this could actually be this big beefy zombie that we saw in the Terminus teaser. This could be this zombie. Now, it's also possible that maybe Nathan is actually Maya's brother and now he's turned into a zombie, and if so, this gives perfect motivation for the DLC. If she finds out her brother's turned into a zombie, she will of course want revenge with the rest of them to go against Richtofen. It's either that, or maybe her brother's been taken elsewhere and then that gives her motivation to track down Richtofen. But I wonder if Nathan is her brother. I guess it could technically not be, but it does say that he's not fully gone because he still responds to Nathan, and he says that he's very manipulative. So I could see in the Easter egg, for example, we hear radio transmissions or contact from Nathan, but as we progress in the Easter egg, we start to realize more and more as he's trying to manipulate us that he is indeed a zombie, but we just don't find out until later to the end of the story, and then we might fight Nathan as the final boss or something like that. But I assume we're probably going to fight the giant tentacle kraken in the water as a final boss, or maybe there could be multiple boss fights even in the Easter egg, but I could see that being a plot for the story. Nathan's actually a zombie, but he still has a bit of intelligence there to manipulate our characters, but we end up uncovering he is indeed a zombie. Now, in this same Terminus teaser, there's some shots where there's an unmarked character on the radio transmission. Now, at first, I and everyone else seemed to think this was Richtofen because the face actually looks so similar to Richtofen, but actually it makes more sense to be Maya's brother because it doesn't make sense for Richtofen to be talking to us on the map. It does seem to be activating whilst we're activating the generators to turn on power, but yeah, this is most likely Maya's brother that might be contacting us in the Easter egg. And maybe the reason why his face is blanked out is because yes, he might have actually turned into a zombie, so that's why it's concealing his identity. Another idea is maybe this is just a placeholder character. When this footage was shot, they didn't actually have images of all the characters because we know Peck is talking to us on the transmission. Of course, he's trying to locate the coordinates of Richtofen throughout the Easter egg, so he'll be talking to us, and of course Raptor 1 will be as well because he's trying to get to the exfil point. He'll be exfilling us on the map. So we saw in one of the pictures of the HUD for Black Ops 6 Zombies that Peck was there. But yeah, maybe this is just a placeholder. But I assume Richtofen is not going to be talking to us on this map. I guess he could be sending us threats or something like that, but it would be weird to conceal his identity when apparently they already know who Richtofen is. I assume though on Liberty Falls, Richtofen will be talking to our characters because we're apparently playing as an elite unit, and I assume that Richtofen has sent in operators of Project Janus to investigate the map, and they may be essentially the bad people that we are playing as for Richtofen on that map. So I assume that Richtofen may be talking to us throughout the Easter egg on Liberty Falls, but it doesn't make as much sense on this map. But I guess it's possible for him to send threats or even to try and get us to come to his side or something. Now, the really cool thing about Terminus, and in fact this is going to be on Liberty Falls as well, is there's going to be dynamic elements of the map. For example, you can come across Terminus guards being attacked by zombies at their final moments, and they can turn around and chase you or something like that. I love this. Also, when you're exploring the different Aetherium chambers, some of them will be twitching, jump scaring you. Also on the gurney, the zombie will be twitching and alive, and I guess you can kill it as well. There's probably some of this involved in the Easter egg too. On Liberty Falls, it seems like there's going to be similar, where you can see civilians being attacked as they are evacuating Liberty Falls as the outbreak is ensuing. We do see it getting eaten alive, for example, and there's so many different animated things. For example, when you kill the parasites, there will be the head that is still twitching on the ground after you have killed it. So it seems like they've really done a good job with making the world feel more alive. Now, I know this is not exactly a storyline thing, but I thought this was just relevant because there's been some new Black Ops 6 Zombies teasers released where if you text clearance to 97122, there's a new ARG happening where you get a censored Project Janus document, and if you then text zombies to it, you get the uncensored version. This is a document that is approved by Edward Richtofen on the 21st of June 1988. It says top secret exclusive for sensitive eyes only, and it's basically called the Organ Oscillicert Aetherium Breeding Reactor, which sounds absolutely freaking ridiculous. The description says Project Janus Energy Research Division originally constructed the Terminus Island Aetherium reactor to be the facility's power source. Following the development of AMP, the Aetherium Maturation Pod technology, the reactor was modified to breed the seeds that amps gestate into fully productive biogalvanic crystalline life forms. So most likely this is probably the backstory behind the Tempest that we saw in Cold War Zombies, because they were crystalline zombies that were cloned over and over again and became part of the Forsaken's army. And we know that Dr. Gray's research and large amounts of Aetherium and top-grade Aetherium was being diverted for Project Janus throughout Cold War Zombies. Richtofen needs lots of Aetherium for Project Janus for an unknown reason, and most likely this is to be powering these devices, but we know that these Aetherium breeding devices are what powers the map. Like I said before, there's going to be 3 different generators. There's going to be one that's by spawn, one not too far after, and then one underground that you turn on for power. So these are going to be acting as power, but I don't think Richtofen is using these devices just for this. Now we know that there's uber rich shareholders for Project Janus, and most likely they have different goals to Richtofen, what he wants out of Project Janus. So whilst he might be creating power supplies, whilst he might be creating weapons to profit off of war, which is probably what the shareholders want, for example, if they can create mass amounts of power from Aetherium, this is going to be majorly profitable for them. They can also create things like the mutant injection to turn you into a mangler. I guess drugs like this are probably being used in the war efforts now, and they're being sold by the shareholders in Janus for a profit. But Richtofen probably wants these similar technologies for different reasons. Now we know from Modern Warfare 3 Zombies that Ava Jansen was apparently created after Ravenov and Samantha Maxis' DNA was taken from them with or without their consent. This might have actually happened during Cold War Zombies or after, it's unclear, but regardless, their DNA was then inseminated into Dr. Gray, who is the surrogate mother, giving birth to Ava Jansen in 1993 before they gave her up for adoption in 1996 when they all died under the bunker in Urzikstan. So considering Richtofen's made these Dark Aether breeding devices, most likely they're not just being used for power, most likely they're not just creating these Tempests or mutated zombies, because we see that there are these zombies in these chambers. Most likely this is either the early stages of the Tempest, or this is a new zombie type on Terminus that has these crystalline parts to them. But Richtofen may have also created Ava Jansen through similar technology, and maybe this is his goal with creating these devices. Whilst he is giving this technology to the shareholders, most likely he is probably using it for a different goal. And we know that when Ava Jansen was born, the entity cropped up in the Dark Aether simultaneously, and considering these devices create these crystalline zombies, is it too far-fetched to say that similar technology might have then created the entity, a clone of Ava Jansen, a Dark Aether version of herself, and Ava even has Dark Aether powers herself, creating a living bond with the Dark Aether? This could have been literally for Project Janus. We know in the Liberty Falls teaser we see a Dark Aether portal that looks so much like the Upside Down from Stranger Things, because I guess they've both taken inspiration from Lovecraftian stuff. But anyways, you can see that the portal is literally alive with roots and stuff like that in it, so this could have actually been created due to the birth of Ava, I'm wondering. Now if we're correct that Richtofen wants to resurrect his son Samuel, then maybe similar technology, cloning technology, could be a way to do so. It's unclear if Richtofen wants Ava for Janus specifically, or if this may have just been a test trial to use this technology to bring his son back, who we think is a Dark Aether ethereal orb now. It's unclear, and this also allows the Requiem Heads to return in the future. Of course, we saw Ava Jansen have a hallucination where we saw all of them as zombies, so most likely their souls still exist in the Dark Aether and they can return. So Richtofen is up to some crazy stuff, literally breeding Aetherium. We know that the Aetherium can literally be bred now, and like I said, similar technology was probably used for the Tempest, but there might not be Tempest on Terminus, but like I said, it might be similar zombies. Maybe the Tempests were kind of a bit too far gone. This might be the next developmental stage of that with the improved technology. I mean, after all, the Forsaken as well is kind of like a giant Tempest. He as well is made up of Aetherium crystals, and I wonder, since Richtofen had the Forsaken contained, what does he need the Forsaken contained for Project Janus? I'm wondering if maybe the containment chamber is actually powering these devices, potentially. Maybe he's actually using the crystals from the Forsaken to power stuff happening on Liberty Falls. We know there's underground tunnels on the map, and that's probably where these Dark Aether portals are. There are so many questions here, but I think this is all going to tie into the final cutscene for Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, releasing with Season 5 Reloaded next week, which I think is going to be huge. These are my predictions for it. I think that that Ava is going to greet at least one returning character because we see her in a black site peeking out of some blinds, and I personally think that either Richtofen is going to greet her and he's been alive, orchestrating the events in Modern Warfare 3 behind the scenes the entire time, or it could be his son Samuel, or maybe even Samantha Maxis is revealed to have escaped from the Dark Ether long ago, 6 days ago, and greets and meets her daughter. I think Ava in this cutscene could even be at Liberty Falls, which is why Liberty Falls is getting revealed after this cutscene, and maybe this could either be concurrently in 2021 or through some weird time travel thing looping back to 1991 when Cold War Zombies began, or 1993 when Ava Jansen was born, maybe she was even born on Liberty Falls, or 1996 when the Requiem Heads sacrificed themselves. There are so many possibilities here, but I think Liberty Falls is somehow going to tie in with this ending. I think Richtofen has the Forsaken at Liberty Falls, and either he is partially involved in the birth of Ava, maybe he is acting as powerful Dark Ether reserves, powering a device similar to the one that we got the blueprint of, or partially in control of the zombies in some way, explaining why he's the announcer in the game. I think the Requiem Heads will also return, like I said, but I'm unsure if they're going to reveal it in this cutscene or saved until the sequel. There's just no way they are staying dead. Like I said, their souls exist, as seen in Ava's hallucination. They likely gave up their essence to return later. I think Ravenov will be killed by Ava/the Entity, and we will separate her from the Entity and kill the Entity permanently, severing the bond between her and the Dark Ether. She retains powers, and Samantha may train her to then utilize them if Samantha does actually return in this cutscene. Either that, or the bond isn't severed and the Entity is saved again for the next game. So what do you think is going to happen in the final cutscene? Maybe I am way off, but I really think some big things are about to unfold. But I wonder if Samantha does escape, is she working with Richtofen and Project Janus because she's literally classified under Project Janus? I wonder if they somehow form a relationship again. I mean, they literally entered this universe together and somehow they completely went their separate ways, and they were supposed to be their innocent souls of themselves, but everything has become corrupted again in this new story. Samantha and Richtofen are repeating the same as before, and it seems like they're going head to head for power of the Dark Ether once again. But that's all the storyline stuff I wanted to say in this video. I'll have a video soon talking about gameplay stuff that I haven't discussed just yet. But anyways, thank you for watching the video, and make sure to subscribe if you're not for latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.